we're so blessed that you're one of 6 Catholic bishops that serve on the board of Cross Catholic Outreach. And as a bishop, I'm sure you get a lot of invitations to be involved with a variety of organizations. What led you to say yes to the invitation from Cross Catholic Outreach?
I said yes to the invitation for Cross Catholic because I truly believe in the mission, in making sure that the whole human person is attended to with hunger, spiritual needs, physical needs, but also just reaching out to the poorest of the poor. That expression really hits me because in our world, we don't always see the poorest of the poor, but we need to be aware of those who are most in need and who need our love and who need the gift of sharing and generosity. So I said yes because of the mission of Cross Catholic, but also because of the fact I had some experience with Cross Catholic. As a pastor in the Diocese of Orlando, we had participated in the Boxes of Joy program, and certainly we really enjoyed it. I know the parishioners loved it, and it was something that we got to know Cross Catholic and just believed in that particular program. And of course, whenever we get a phone call, we pray about it. And I prayed about the invitation to serve on the board and was very impressed also with the organization, the way that you are held accountable, the transparency, and the scope of Cross Catholic. It's much larger than Box of Joy.
You saw Box of Joy firsthand when you were pastor. What do you think the blessings are to a parish, but also to the families that actually participate? Is that a teachable moment for young Catholics?
It's a teachable moment for both sides. For those who receive an empty box here in the United States, to think and to be able to teach our next generation, our children, our young people. I think from a parent's perspective, going out and being able to teach children to be able to go shop for the items that would be placed into the box, I think is just a great opportunity for greater awareness of the poor in the world. There's something very fulfilling about it. I see people want to do things that are hands-on. A Box of Joy is very hands-on. It's not just writing a check, and which is always a great thing to do. And we always appreciate financial gifts, but to be able to do something material. I always found as a pastor and now as a bishop, people want to know where their generosity is going. They want to know specifically what has been purchased with it. And the Box of Joy program allows that. Now, on the other hand, for the child who receives the Box of Joy, just that ability to realize that they are loved, that somebody from another country, from another place, maybe they have no concept of that either, but that somebody cares. And I think we all know that when we receive something from another land, from someplace else, there's excitement about that. We all like to get a souvenir. The Box of Joy is more than a souvenir. It's something that's so special because when it's opened, it's somebody cares about me and my needs. But also there's an intrigue about it. In our lives, we have a twofold mission. It is to love and to be loved. The Box of Joy program helps to fulfill both of those.
Our co-founder often says sometimes that's the only Christmas present children will ever get. You talked about that and sort of that mystery we used to feel as kids on Christmas morning of a young child in Guatemala or somewhere in Africa. That excitement is something very special, isn't it?
I also enjoyed watching the videos of the boxes being distributed. And truly, it was a joyful moment when those boxes are delivered. And to see that on the children's faces, it means a lot. And to know that it's made a difference for them.
Well, the Diocese of Savannah, where you serve as bishop, is rather large geographically. First of all, I know you're having an anniversary this year, 175 years. Happy anniversary. Almost 3 million people live here. And from time to time, you allow Cross Catholic to send in a missionary priest to raise awareness about the suffering in the developing world. Why do American Catholics need to be reminded from time to time about the plight of others?
We can get very comfortable in our day-to-day existence and just take things for granted. So there's always a need for our mission efforts to be internal, but also external. You mentioned we have 3 million people in the Diocese of Savannah. That's the overall population, but there are only 80,000 Catholics, which means we have a lot of work to do here in terms of this is true mission territory. With evangelization, we also have levels of poverty here that other areas of our country may not be aware of because it is very rural and very agricultural. But I think it's so important to realize that the world is bigger than just ourselves. And really, how is it that we, as people here in our country, who have been very blessed in many, many ways, can help out and share that generosity? We have to be able to share. It's not to make us feel good, and it's not to make the other person feel good. I think our sharing and our knowledge, our awareness of the larger world, of the global situation, is something that assists in our road to heaven. It's what we need to be doing as disciples, to not just see who is in front of us, but who do we not see in the world? And Cross Catholic is able to bring that message and to help bring that awareness.
When it comes to helping the poor around the world, the church has a fancy term called integral human development. Probably the average person couldn't give a definition of that, but what is integral human development and why is that the best way to address global poverty?
When God created us, He didn't just create us as a physical being, but He created us physical, emotional, spiritual, and all of that goes together. So the term integral human development helps to bring it together, that we are called to accompany one another. Pope Francis often reminded us of that, that we see one another not just as a physical being, but as somebody with dignity. And if we forget that dignity part, that element of the human person, and if we ignore the spiritual side, we're really not respecting that person and not respecting God as we should.
You mentioned Pope Francis, a tireless champion of the poor. 8 years ago, he instituted what they call World Day for the Poor. It's celebrated every November. What will the legacy of Pope Francis be when it comes to thinking about helping the poor?
He constantly reminded us about the periphery. I think that's a word that people didn't really know very much about in the Catholic world until Pope Francis. Who is on the periphery? Who are we called to be reminded of on a daily basis? So I think when it comes to reaching out, the Holy Father, that Pope Francis was very much talked about ensuring that we go to the peripheries and be courageous in doing so. Not to do so in a manner in which there's not an awareness or fear. Don't be afraid to go to the boundaries, to go to the places where the poor are, but to have that sense of courage. Because again, it's our call as disciples. Pope Francis also will leave a legacy, I think, of somebody who just had an incredible love for people and reminded us of God's mercy. When we had the Year of Mercy about 10 years ago, that mercy is also a great component, and that really the poor, each one of us is poor because we are in need of God's mercy and God's love. And how is it that we as people can recognize that poverty in ourselves? And when we recognize that, then we're inspired to share and to be able to share our resources, what we have, not just the financial and the material resources, but also our prayers. It's critical. I think he is going to leave a legacy that we will be continually reminded of, and certainly a champion for the mission of Cross Catholic.
On one hand, we had the sadness at losing Pope Francis, but just 2 weeks ago, the College of Cardinals elected Pope Leo XIV, the first U.S. citizen elected to be Pope. He spent a number of years in Peru as a missionary. This is a very exciting time, a new Pope. What has been the reaction of the faithful here in the Diocese of Savannah?
Very excited. Obviously, many people have said didn't think that they would see a citizen or somebody born in the United States become Pope in their lifetime. I think that there's been a great enthusiasm and a connection that we've not necessarily always had. I think we always have a great connection to the Pope because of who we are in our universal church and his leadership. However, when Pope Leo spoke in English for the first time, and people are like, wow, I really felt I fully understood him, and it meant a lot. It spoke not just to their heart, not just seeing visually, but also realizing that his growing up experience was like ours. So there will be a strong connection to him. Now, on the flip side of that, there also comes a responsibility for the people in our country, for Catholics in our country specifically, to pray for Pope Leo, because this is his homeland, his initial homeland. So we have a responsibility to pray for him as brothers and sisters from this country, to be able to lift up his ministry, that God will certainly give him what he needs in order to fulfill his responsibilities. So yes, it's exciting for us, but it also comes with that responsibility to lift him and to have a deeper connection with him.
A baseball fan from Chicago, something a lot of guys can relate to. Do you think a U.S. citizen but being Pope is going to spur vocations in the United States?
I do. I believe that, again, because of the communication, the ability to communicate, he has the U.S. experience, knowledge of the United States, having grown up here. He has the heart of a South American missionary, and he also has knowledge of the workings of the Vatican. It's like a perfect combination for our time and for what we need. And I think these initial weeks of his papacy have already shown him to be somebody who people are attracted to. And I think that the Catholic Church has been in the news quite a bit. And I think in a very positive tone, in a positive light, this is something for us to celebrate. That will trickle down. I think our young people are watching. They're looking for something besides what the world offers. I think that the spirit in each one of us is seeking to be fed. We're hungering. And I truly believe that social media, games, technology, it's not going to fulfill that. But somebody who can speak to their hearts. And I think Pope Leo is going to be able to do that. That will inspire them into the future to service within the church. Yes, with religious vocations, but also as missionaries because of his own example. And certainly that would be a help to the whole world to even have more U.S. missionaries, to have a resurgence of that among the laity would be an incredible gift.
Throughout the centuries, the saints have implored us to remember the poor. Is there a particular saint in the rich history of the church that inspires you when it comes to thinking about helping others?
My patron saint is Saint Stephen. And no, he was not known for helping the poor directly, but he was certainly somebody who inspired others to look beyond through his preaching. He was the first martyr. He gave his life for the church. And I think he inspired others to do good. So I think there is that ability to look to someone like Saint Stephen, my patron, who I have a connection to be able to speak and act as well, and to not be afraid to give our lives in service to another. Some of our more contemporary saints, like Mother Teresa, of course, is somebody who, she was not afraid to go out and to hold people who were ill, to be able to visit them. I think when we see those types of images, that also can inspire us, and that helps us to not be afraid. John Paul II, his words so often said, "Be not afraid." I think that is an inspiration and a call for us to go beyond our comfort zone and to be able to assist those who are most in need.
As a board member of Cross Catholic, you know that our primary mission is helping the poorest of the poor around the world, but occasionally we are able to help dioceses in the United States when disaster strikes. The Diocese of Savannah is in the southeast, prone to hurricanes, and last year Hurricane Helene did a lot of damage here in the southern part of Georgia. What was the effect on the people?
Due to some shifting weather patterns that have recently come about, not only here in Georgia, but around our world. Hurricanes seem to be going up through the Gulf of Mexico and hitting the Big Bend of Florida, and then going right up through middle Georgia. So we were hit 3 times last year, actually, with storms, and they were severe, Helene being the worst. It's not normal, and we're not used to having 100-mile-an-hour winds through a lot of our rural areas. And even still, when I drive through and visit areas and parts of our diocese, I see that people's homes were split in 2 by huge oak trees. We know that the initial needs were great in terms of just the day-to-day, people trying to get their lives back together. The ability to help people long-term. So often when there are disasters, we see just the initial short-term needs. But we sometimes forget that people eventually have to get their homes fixed. They don't have insurance. They need that assistance. They need help from others. And it's not just the government assistance, it's love. It's that ability to walk with them, to accompany them. One of our cities, the city of Augusta, was pretty devastated by Hurricane Helene. And it reminded me, as I was there just a few days after the storm had come through, driving on a street which is normally 2 lanes and even a little bit wider. It reminded me of being up north, growing up in Long Island. And when you would drive after a snowstorm, the plow would come through and there would be big piles on either side of the street and just one car able to get through. Well, this wasn't snow, but it was debris everywhere. And I was just up there this past weekend. We're talking months later. Some of that debris is still there. The children missed weeks of school. Family life was disrupted. And so the ability, I was very grateful because Cross Catholic sent a donation to us. And it was just very, very kind. It was very generous. But to know and to feel, wow, others are watching. Because we weren't all over the news. Sometimes the media covers the most extreme, but there's somewhere in the middle there too. And that was where we really were affected, but the needs were great.
Serving the church runs in your family. In addition to you being the Bishop of Savannah, your brother, Gregory Parks, is the shepherd of the Diocese of St. Petersburg in Florida. And I know that your predecessor, or one of your predecessors, Bishop Boland, also had a brother that was a bishop. This is pretty rare in the Catholic Church when you have 2 blood brothers that are bishops. What does it mean for your family to have both of you serving?
Big surprise. We don't apply to be bishops. We are asked. It is a call. And certainly, for us, for it to happen to 2 brothers in one family, first of all, to have 2 priests in one family, it's pretty rare, but a little more common than maybe we think. But then 2 bishops, our parents are deceased, so they're not here, although certainly in their absence, they have a whole new presence. I can only think that, from the kingdom of God, they have a great view and they're there cheering us on, praying for us. So certainly I have great gratitude because I realize that the family that we grew up in was very special, and that my parents were very faithful, and the church was always an important part of our lives. It was a home. And I would hope that other families have that same vision for their family, to be able to have the church as the center and the core of our family life. That certainly had an effect for my brother, Gregory, and myself. It's brought great joy, and it's a blessing, because to have a brother who's only a year older than I am, and to have a close relationship with him, but then to also be brother bishops, we have the ability to really support one another in a special way, support one another through prayer, and support one another just knowing that we're both shepherding a large group of people. It comes with a big responsibility, and it means a lot to me personally.
Bishop Parks, thank you for your hospitality today. Thank you for welcoming us to the Diocese of Savannah, and thank you for serving on the board of Cross Catholic Outreach.
You are most welcome. It's an honor and it's a privilege, and I look forward to serving years into the future.